Hey everyone, DM Jared here from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained. We're doing a book review of Paizo's new Pathfinder Lost Omens Society Guide. Paizo was generous enough to send us a PDF to do a review on, and yeah, I sat down, started reading it, loved it. Well, I loved it for certain reasons, and I'll get to that. But this is basically a general overview of the book. What is society? Now, what's funny is, Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained did an entire segment in our podcast, and the links for it will be in the description down below, where we talked about what society was, myself and my co-host, Steve. And basically what society is out of game, right? Out of game universe. Society is a single missions that you can jump in and jump out of as you play. Firstly, you could take this character and bring it anywhere society is played. So you could play it on Roll20, you could play it on Fantasy Grounds, you can play it at your local friendly game store if they're hosting it. Anywhere. PaizoCon, I ran a few society missions in PaizoCon, and yeah, it was great. And especially since we were online this year, that's what society is outside the game. It's kind of a one-shot scenario that you could play, you could drop in and out of. I suggest playing it. It's really fun, and you build a character as you level. And again, if you want more detail, just go into the links below and you'll see our podcast on that. Now, in-game, what is society? What is the lore of society in Golarion? So, society basically is a combination of MI6 mixed with Indiana Jones. You have those two things and they just get mashed into one. You're going to be playing an adventurer, and your adventurer seeks out the society, and society is a private organization that works to better Golarion as a whole. They have no allegiance to any one nation, and they send you all over the planet. So it's a really great way for your character to experience outside of an AP all different areas, because in APs many times they're kind of isolated to one area, or there'll be like one or two areas the AP will be isolated into. Society, your character could start in Osirian, and then all of a sudden be in the Mana Waste, and then be in Nex or in Geb, and then all of a sudden you're getting all this extra lore that this character you might not have gotten if you were just playing an AP. So again, I highly suggest playing Society. So, why pick this book up? I picked it up, not just because Paizo sent it to me. I was planning on getting it. I picked it up because I am a lore junkie. If you are like me and you are a lore junkie, you want to get this book. It's chock full of lore from the start of society. There is a massive amount of history that happened. So as you play society, things will start to happen, and every year they Paizo catalogs everything that happens. The GM has to send in a review sheet of what was accomplished. So sometimes the players might say, well, we're just gonna kill. They might be given an opportunity to kill an evil NPC, and they might say, no, we're not gonna kill them. And then the GM will have a sheet, and it's the GM sheet. They'll take their sheet and then mark off that they did. And every society that's being played, the GM will mark that off and send that into Paizo. All of a sudden, there's all this lore being sent into Paizo, and they compile it, and they check and see what's going on. And then all of a sudden, they see, oh man, everyone saved that villain. Well, that villain's alive, so our writers can keep using that villain as a reoccurring character. Maybe now they're good. Maybe now they're evil. And that's what this book basically does. It takes all that information and it puts it into a lore book that you can sit down and read. Now, so that's one thing why you would want to pick this book up. What else is going on with this book? So some things I liked was in each chapter, as you read them, there are these like really cool things. Let me show you. But there are these really cool things. If you're watching this on our YouTube, you could see on the side of the page, like these secondary smaller boxes, very similar to how their other books were released. There are like these little tidbits of information, lore information that you're picking up as you're reading. And some of them are like Pathfinder Society slang, so you can role play that a little bit more. Some of them are was there are special hand symbols that the society members know, and they're called the Napsu sign, and that comes from like one of the earliest society members, founder members. It's called the hand signs, and it goes into the lore behind the hand signs and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool, and that goes throughout all this book, not just the hand signs, but like all this secondary lore or secret information. And it goes throughout the entire book. You just keep getting more and more information. And that allows you to role play or even have this information that as a DM I could use in my games, even in my adventure paths or even my homebrew campaigns. That's what this book gives you. A lot of intense lore, a lot of secret information. And I love that. I love that a lot. I'm a lore junkie, a nerd. It is something I love. Additionally, something else I really liked was the artwork. It is the artwork you are expecting to see coming from Paizo and their artist. Between chapters 1 and 2, and it's every faction leader on that page. So I'll get into that in a little bit. But basically, there are factions in society, and these are their leaders. And they are beautifully drawn, amazing. I love the half-orc because the half-orc, you could see around her nose, and around their nose, there are freckles. And then in the other society member leaning over her shoulder, he has this really gnarly scar. I know who they are. It's Iondo Klein and Kalisro Benari is the half-orc. And he has like this gnarly scar. And next to him is the dwarf, is a dwarf bard. And regal as always, with his eyes closed, looking down, proud upper chin. And there's this elf, beautiful tattoos on her arms, on her face. Her hair has flowers. Looks like the flowers are growing into it. And just all the detail to this amazing attention. And the art, I mean, throughout the entire book, I'm just scrolling. And on page 37, you have this elf. And they are holding a pistol and a whip. And that's so Indiana Jones. Again, beautifully drawn. And the art just gets me. And I love it. I just can't get enough of the art that Paizo puts out. And this book has a ton of it. So the artwork, amazing. Love it. I can't get enough of it. I'm a huge nerd for the artwork and stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. Please just, if you have no other reason than like you love art or you're looking for inspiration for drawing, pick this book up. In between each chapter, you have this double page giant piece of artwork. So definitely check it out for that. Going on, like I said, factions, and this again goes into the lore, but as you progress in chapter 2, I believe it's all the factions that you can be. And what I mean is when you make a Pathfinder Society character, you could choose a faction to be under, because when you play society missions, you can accrue faction reputation, and that helps you out later on, or even in the game you can purchase items through them. And talking about items, in each faction, they're now faction-specific items. Again, amazing. If you are a DM or someone trying, let's say you can't get a group settled down, or even if your group at home, you have a lot of older people with a lot of different ties, where maybe, or even if you're in college and you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to keep playing, or maybe get like a large group of like 8 or 9 people rotating in and out, that's when you would want to start playing society missions, because again, it's each story, the stories do collect. There is a meta plot, and you'll see tags for that when you're looking at the society missions. You'll see like there are specific tags. So some of them will say repeatable, some of them will say meta plot, some of them will say they'll tell you like this faction is involved with it. Currently, there used to be a bunch of factions, and they go over what happened to all the factions previously. But now they, I believe, are down to 4 big ones and 2 smaller ones. So the factions are the Radiant Oath, and they tell you what those are, that faction's about. There's the Envoys Alliance. Again, that's a new faction. So these aren't the same factions from first edition. These are the new factions for second edition. So if you're coming from first edition Society play and you're trying to get into second edition, again, pick this book up. It will catch you up. Like, let's say you kind of fell off, you might have had a child, whatever, you haven't had time, work, life got in the way, it happens, and you want to get into second edition, you hear, oh, second edition is really cool. This is the book you want to pick up. It kind of catches you up to the years. Yeah, so there's the Envoys Alliance, the Grand Archive. Woo, that's my faction. All my characters are in the Grand Archive. I kind of each faction has like a little slogan besides the general overview of society, which is explore, report, cooperate. So each faction says like, this is why we're a faction. This is what we're about. So it's really fun. There's the Horizon Hunters. They tell you what they're about, who's their notable members, everything, how they started. And then again, you have that gear that's specific to the Horizon Hunters, that's specific to the Grand Archivist, that's specific to the Envoy Alliance. And then you have the Vigilant Seal. Their items are in there. And then you have, now it talks about, and then all of a sudden it skips, and now you're looking at something called the Scrolls, the Swords, and the Spells. Scrolls, Spells, Swords. The 3 S's. And these aren't factions. They are kind of, they're part of the society. They're a major part of society. They're part of the lore. But they're not a faction. So a faction is more of like the Scrolls, the Swords, and the Spells they focus on those things. So Scrolls focus on knowledge and books. Spells focus on magical stuff, and the Swords focus on fighting. So if you want to be, I would say like, it's kind of like they're sub factions. And that's what I mean. There are sub factions that aren't part of a faction. Again, talking about the factions, each faction has items. When you get to the Spells, the Scrolls, and the Swords, they have feats. You have to dedicate to get to these feats with certain things. So some of them say you have to dedicate from the Lost Omens character guide, the Pathfinder agent. The Pathfinder agent, I believe, is the the agent dedication, the Pathfinder agent dedication. And once you dedicate that, you could start to unlock these feats. So, or they'll say, oh, you have to be a Scroll Master dedication, which again is in this book, which is on chapter 313. I mean, the character guide on 313. So that's what's part of this. So again, a lot of lore. As you go through this book, you'll see the lore, more and more lore. This is a very heavy lore book. So again, there are feats and items, but a lot of it's all really tied to society. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're picking this book up. It's all tied to society. This is more for society stuff. The Lost Omens World Guide, Pathfinder Agent is in there. That's the dedication. You want to pick that up, and that unlocks a lot of stuff for this society book. What else is really awesome about this is new items, and that is all the way at the end in the Pathfinder Society options. And in there, you have a lot of items specific to, again, being a society member and helping you complete your stuff. Because remember, when you play society, you kind of just show up. Unless you're playing with like a group, like I said, a continual group. This is more or less you just show up. So I might be playing an alchemist, right? Let's say I'm playing an alchemist and I just show up to a table. And there's an alchemist, a cleric, a bard, and a wizard. There's no real big fighters. So a lot of times you need items to mitigate that. Sometimes services, other stuff like that. So this has a lot of items dedicated to the characters, and more feats, again, are listed in this that make you kind of round your character out some more. One of the things I really like is they added in familiars, new familiars. There's the duo mercat, there's the puppet, and the calligraphy worm. Personally, I think the cat is the coolest one. These are all familiars that you can get, and they have really, really, really cool features to them. So like the calligraphy worm is a bookworm, but it's like a dragon. I'm assuming kind of looks like a little dragon, not an actual worm like WORM. This is WYRM. So like a little dragon, like think like a fairy dragon or something like that. And it writes. It has ink spray, which I think is hysterical. It's an action. It spatters ink in a 10-foot cone, and you have to make a reflex or get covered in ink. And then their claws. Your calligraphy worm has a stylish shaped claw that will fill with its natural ink and the claw, and use the claw as a pen. So this creature will write notes for you. So I thought that's really cool. You could do something a lot of fun with that. Like that's a lot of role play. The cat, the Duomer cat, has spells. The cup gains an AC bonus. So you kind of pick what the cat looks like. Again, they go into lore of like what this cat is, how it became, and then the puppet is a puppet familiar made of wicker and wood, and are among the most basic construct familiars available to Pathfinder agents across the globe. And it has like this little picture of like a little rag doll, like Raggedy Ann, like the black-eyed, like kind of like a smirk, hair, and it's all made out of wood, but it's holding like a little staff, and that's really cool. And I like that. It's a lot of flair, and they've been kind of releasing familiars more and more throughout the books, like specific familiars, and I like that because I know as a player and as a GM, a lot of my players have choice freeze. So the Pathfinder has a lot of choices, and all of a sudden now there's more choices with the familiar. So just being able to kind of give them like a template to work with is really fun, and it helps them not so much get bogged down with the choice freeze. So that's what I really, really like about Society, this book, the Pathfinder Society guide. You have all your lore for from 2008 to 2018 was 10 years. We're currently 2020, almost 2021. So that's over 10 plus years. So there's a lot of lore there that you would have to catch up, or even you don't have to catch up, but like let's say you sat down and started playing and people are talking about stuff that happened in previous adventures, you'd want to kind of catch up on that. This is where it's at. If you're new to playing Society and you want to catch up on lore, grab this book. If you're a player and you want to catch up on lore, if you're a returning Pathfinder Society player, like my friend Steve is, he loves this book. He's a massive nerd for this book. He went crazy for this when we got it. He read it over. We're going to be doing a review with him on his end because he got into Pathfinder through Society. So for him, this was amazing because he never really, again, life gets in the way. So you can't always be playing every mission. You might miss a few missions here and there. This covers a lot of that stuff. It covers the history of what the general history, obviously not every single mission. It just gives you a basic overview of how Pathfinder Society was created in lore and kind of where we're at. Next, you have these items, really cool items. Some are specific to the factions. Some of them are just Pathfinder Society items. Again, items are never a bad thing. You don't have, these items aren't locked in to Society missions. I give all my players the compass whenever the Wayfinder. That's like whenever I'm playing a game in the Pathfinder universe, they'll always find a dead body or some way to find a Wayfinder. It's a really cool compass. It works with ion stones, and these items I would definitely keep an eye on and use them. Which they have more adventuring gear, which is never terrible. Like they have concealable thieves tools, earplugs, false manacles, familiar satchel, clockwork dial. These are really great items that, again, you don't have to be playing Society to use. These are items that they could just get. Like, yeah, they're made for Society, but like grappling bolt, a grappling arrow, but designed for the use of a crossbow. Why wouldn't you use that in any of your games? So, again, this book has a lot of stuff for just everyone in general. So if you're picking this book up and you're a DM this is a great resource because you want to have those items. Now, things I didn't like within this book, and again, this is an overview. It was a little wonky while reading it, and some of the things seemed out of place for me personally. So chapter 1, right? It talks about society. It explains what society is. It talks about what everything is, the history, all that jazz. Now you have chapter 2, Pathfinder Society and Factions. Cool, because again, you're trying to build this character to be part of this world. So you're going to want to choose a faction. They kind of have your back. Awesome. So you go into the factions and you read about the new factions and what they're about. And that's chapter 2. But then you have those items part of the factions. And again, I feel like that could have been put in the later chapter, the chapter with the items. But they put them here. Cool. Now the problem, you have all the factions and then you have the items. And then all of a sudden they hit you on page, I believe this is page 40. They hit you with the Pathfinder agent feats, which are additional feats to add on to that dedication from Lost Omens World Guide, the Pathfinder agent dedication. And these are just more feats to add to that class, right? Because the assumption is you would take that dedication since you are playing a Pathfinder Society member. So now they have the feats with the factions, which to me didn't make a lot of sense. I would have just put that at the end of the book with the rest of everything. So you have those feats, and then it talks about the scrolls. And then after it talks about the scrolls, it talks about the Scroll Master dedication, which is now they have feats for those dedications. So again, a bit confused. Like now I'm learning history and now I'm looking at the feats. And then it talks about the spells, and then the Spellmaster dedication and Spellmaster feats. Okay, and then same thing with swords, Swordmaster feats. So you now have the factions, and then all of a sudden you're putting in these feats. So it seems like a lot, like they were just a lot front loading it, and it's already a lot front loaded because you have a lot of this lore that you're reading and catching up on, or or reading for the first time, and now you're just getting bombarded with feats, which again can confuse you because now you're trying to cross-reference those feats to the class, which might not be in this book, so you have to go to a different book. I think it would have just been better at the end of the book where they have the classes and more feats and the items and the familiars. And they could have said, okay, if you've taken this dedication, and they say in this book, again, it's Pathfinder dedication, Lost Omen World Guide, for that dedication. If you've taken this dedication, these are the feats you get. If you've taken this dedication, these are the feats you get. I think it would have been a little bit more concise. And so then they go to chapter 3, and then they go into, again, the 10, which is kind of like the ruling council of Pathfinder Society. And it goes into who they are and the mask. So all of them wear these masks and what they kind of do. There is no real ruling council. They don't really get involved. They say they don't get involved, but like when they have to, they will. Again, it goes into lore on why they had to get involved between actually Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2, first edition and second edition. So the 10, should they have had their own chapter? No. I think this should have been in the front with the lore. And then not so much with the factions, because now it kind of sounds like the 10 are a faction you could join. So it's very weird. And then they go to chapter 3, which are all the lodges around Golarion. And they talk about all the lodges. Really cool. A lot of information there. They say who the venture captain is, the rival to that area lodge, their symbol. So lodges is really cool. This is important. I like this section a lot. I'm not disagreeing with the choice of putting it here. It makes sense. And then at the very end, it's the options. Pathfinder, it literally says society options. That's where I think they should have had all that stuff from the other chapters. Should have been brought here in the society options as to why it was in those other chapters. Some of it makes sense. some of it doesn't. I don't know what I really feel about it. That was just strange for me. I just didn't like that. That's just a nitpick, really. So, you know, do you need this book? I needed this book. I love lore. So for me, this was a book I was going to get. Whether or not Paizo sent it to me, I was going to get this book. I love lore. The rest of my party, the people I game with, they love lore too, but some of them don't care as much as I do. Again, not terrible. Maybe you're the lore guy. Like I chose the Grand Archive because it seemed like they like lore. If I'm playing Pathfinder Society, or if I'm running Pathfinder Society, I do want to pick this book up because, again, it's all about the lore. You have lore that you would need to know. Not need to know, but you would know, and your character would know. And again, going back to the other stuff, there's like slang that society members use. There's a lot of really interesting items or character background stuff that you could put into your character as a society member. But if you're not playing society or you don't care, no, I wouldn't pick this book up. Do I think other of my players need to know it? No. They wouldn't. Would they get use out of it? Yes. Of course they would get use out of it, but it wouldn't change what they do. If I love art, yeah, I'm getting this book. Paizo's art for all their books is amazing, and you're not going bad. I love the every chapter has this massive image between the two pages. And it's all of them tell a story, and that's what I love, is each bit of art tells a story. If I'm a collector, I collect books. I also do that too. Do I want this book? Yeah, of course I want this book. This is part of my collection. This is a beautiful book. Besides that, there's really not much more to go on. It's not a massive book. It's only, so to the very end, 187 pages from cover to almost end cover. 187 pages. So it's not a massive book. Does it give me a lot to play with? Unless I'm playing society or my character is a society, like if I'm playing an adventurer who is part of the Pathfinder Society who adventures, sure, like, yeah, it gives me stuff because I could take that dedication. But besides that, no, it doesn't give me a lot to do if I'm not playing society. So there's your toss-up. Are you going to pick it up? My suggestion is, if you love art, if you love lore, or if you're a book collector, pick up this book. If you're just in passing playing and you just want to have it, or if you want to see the items, pick up the PDF. I wouldn't get the hard copy. Pick up the PDF. It's a bit cheaper. But besides that, this is more of a society thing. If you play society, please do pick this book up. I can't recommend it enough. If you've never played society, go out, play society, then pick this book up because you'll be happy. I always suggest playing society. Society is a great way to get introduced to second edition. It's fast, it's fun. You can meet great people playing this game through society. I met Steve through society. With that being said, I hope this helps. I hope you kind of get a good overview of what the book is. And thank you very much to Paizo for sending us this PDF review copy. And thank you for all of you guys listening out there. I hope you have a great day, great evening. And from all of us here, we are Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained. Rolling dice, giving advice with a little bit of that New York spice. Have a good one.